The sensor display flickered 3 times before Kren believed what he was seeing. Numbers scrolled across his screen in the dim control room where he had worked the night shift for 6 years. Something was moving inside the Veil sector. That should not be possible. Kren pressed his 4 hands against the console and ran the scan again. His chitinous fingers clicked nervously on the smooth surface. The contact was still there. A ship, traveling at sublight speeds, deep inside the purple clouds where nothing survived. "Supervisor Meln," Kren called out, his voice carrying the high-pitched warble of his species. "I need you to verify this reading." The older Chivari shuffled over, her blue carapace dull with age. She glanced at the screen and froze. "Run full diagnostics on the array. This has to be a malfunction." Kren had already done that twice. All systems are functioning normally. The contact persists across multiple sensor types. Thermal, electromagnetic, quantum signature. It's real. Meln's antenna twitched, a sign of deep concern among their kind. She reached past Kren and pulled up the historical data. The last time anything had entered the Veil sector was 200 years ago, a Council science vessel with full shielding and a crew of 50. They had lasted 43 seconds before the distress beacon activated. By the time rescue arrived, everyone aboard was dead, their neural tissue turned to liquid inside their skulls. "How long has this contact been inside?" Meln asked. Kren checked the timestamps. His antenna drooped. 19 minutes. The supervisor made a clicking sound that meant disbelief. She activated the station-wide alert. Within moments, other officers crowded around the sensor station. They all saw the same impossible reading. High Arbiter Thexlan arrived within the hour. The tall Chivari wore the silver bands of authority across his thorax and carried himself with the confidence of someone who had commanded fleets for 3 decades. He studied the sensor data in silence while the entire operations center waited. "Identity of the vessel?" Thexlan asked finally. A younger officer pulled up the ship's transponder information. "Registry shows it as the Steady Fortune, a human cargo hauler, Earth-based commercial license. The signature matches their primitive jump drive technology." Murmurs spread through the room. Humans were barely known in Council space. They had made first contact only 50 years ago and remained on the outer edges of galactic civilization. Most species considered them backward, friendly enough but technologically primitive. Their ships were slow and their weapons were outdated. "How could humans not know about the quarantine?" someone asked. Ambassador Tal Wen materialized via hologram, her crystalline form glowing with soft blue light. They were never officially briefed. Humans arrived after the last update to the prohibited sector's database. The oversight was considered minor since they rarely venture this far from their home systems. Thexlan's mandibles clicked together in thought. Has the crew shown any signs of distress? Kren pulled up the communication logs. Their transponder is broadcasting normally. No distress signals. No emergency protocols activated. Thermal scans show 4 life signs, all within normal parameters for human physiology. "That's impossible," Commander Rill stated flatly. The reptilian officer's scales rippled with agitation. 23 minutes of exposure to the silence would kill any known species. Even with full neural shielding, the quantum interference would. "I am aware of the silence's effects," Thexlan interrupted. "I want Dr. Mivsha brought in immediately. We need xenobiological analysis." The amphibious scientist arrived within minutes, her translucent skin showing the rapid pulse of her internal organs. She absorbed the data quickly, her large eyes widening. "This contradicts everything we know about neural vulnerability to quantum entanglement. Either your sensors are malfunctioning, or human neurology is fundamentally different from every species we have cataloged." Thexlan made his decision. Deploy the fleet to the sector boundary. Full readiness protocols. Do not engage unless the human vessel attempts to penetrate deeper into the sector. Someone contact the ship and inform them they have violated Council law. Within the hour, 7 massive warships positioned themselves along the invisible line that marked the edge of the Veil sector. Each vessel represented a different Council species, their varied designs reflecting thousands of years of separate technological development. They maintained maximum possible distance from the purple nebulae that marked the Silence's reach. The operations center watched as their communication officer sent a tight beam transmission toward the human ship. Everyone waited for the response, expecting to hear the screams or garbled speech of a crew succumbing to neural collapse. Instead, a woman's voice came through, sounding annoyed but perfectly coherent. "This is Captain Diana Walsh of the Steady Fortune. We copy your transmission. Could you repeat that last part about violating what law?" The control room went silent. Dr. Mivsha leaned closer to the speaker, as if proximity would help her understand. "Captain Walsh, this is Dr. Mivsha representing the Galactic Council. How long have you been inside the Veil sector?" "The what sector?" Diana's voice carried clear confusion. "Look, our nav computer had a hiccup during our last jump. We've been recalibrating for about half an hour. Are we in restricted space or something? Nobody told us about any off-limits zones out here." "Captain, I need you to answer precisely. Are you or any of your crew experiencing headaches, visual distortions, auditory hallucinations, or feelings of disassociation?" A pause. "Number should we be?" Dr. Mivsha looked at Thexlan. The High Arbiter's antenna stood straight up, a posture of complete alertness. He activated his communication link. "Captain Walsh, this is High Arbiter Thexlan of the Council Enforcement Division. I am ordering you to shut down all engines immediately and prepare to be boarded. You have entered a quarantine zone of the highest classification." "Boarded? What the hell did we fly into?" Commander Rill stepped forward. "High Arbiter, we should destroy the vessel before it can contaminate." "No," Thexlan said firmly. "That ship and its crew have survived 32 minutes inside the Silence. I want to know how that's possible before we do anything else." Diana's voice came through again. "Seriously, what's going on? We're just a cargo hauler. We're carrying machine parts and medical supplies. Is this about tariffs?" Kren watched his screen as the human ship's engines powered down. The vessel hung in space, surrounded by the purple clouds, its crew apparently unaware they were living through something that should have killed them instantly. Thexlan turned to his staff. "Get me everything we have on human neurology. I want to know what makes them different. Dr. Mivsha, prepare your medical scanners. If these humans truly are immune to the Silence, we need to understand why. And someone find out what else is in that sector that might interest a species that can survive where we cannot." On the sensor display, the Steady Fortune sat peacefully in the deadliest region of known space, its crew asking about paperwork violations, while the entire Council fleet watched in disbelief. Diana Walsh stared at the viewscreen where 7 massive warships had appeared around her vessel like sharks circling prey. This was not how cargo runs were supposed to go. She had been hauling freight across the outer systems for 20 years and had never even received a parking ticket. "Pete, please tell me our insurance covers hostile first contact scenarios," she said to her first officer. Pete Ruiz looked up from his console, his young face pale. "I don't think any insurance covers this. Those are Council military vessels. Each one could vaporize us without breaking a sweat." In the engine room, Lena Kowalski was swearing in 3 languages while running diagnostics on their jump drive. The navigation error had put them in this mess, and she was determined to figure out what went wrong. Her tablet showed nothing unusual. The drive had performed exactly as designed. The calculations had simply been fed bad coordinate data. Owen Burke sat at the navigation station, double-checking every number. He had been flying routes for 12 years and had never miscalculated a jump. The math was his whole life. Finding an error in his work felt like discovering his own bones were arranged wrong. "Captain, they're hailing us again," Pete said. Diana straightened in her chair. "Put them through." The insected face of High Arbiter Thexlan filled the screen. Diana had seen pictures of the Chivari before but never met one in person. His 4 arms and mandibles should have been frightening, but his voice carried a careful politeness that made him seem less threatening. "Captain Walsh, thank you for cooperating. We need to transport you and your crew to our research station for medical evaluation." "Medical evaluation," Diana's protective instincts flared. "My crew is fine. We're all healthy. Look, we made a navigation mistake. We'll file the proper violation reports and pay whatever fines are required, but I'm not letting anyone take my people." A new voice joined the channel. Dr. Mivsh's amphibious features appeared in a split screen. "Captain, please understand. The region of space you are in has been fatal to every species that has entered it for the past 8,000 years. The fact that you and your crew are alive is scientifically impossible. We need to understand why." Diana felt ice slide down her spine. She looked at Pete, who had gone even paler. "Fatal how?" "The silence, as we call it, is quantum interference from ancient weapons testing. It interacts with neural tissue in ways that cause immediate biological failure. Most crews lose consciousness within seconds. Death follows shortly after. You have been inside for 45 minutes. The bridge went quiet except for the hum of life support systems. Diana had known space was dangerous, but this was different. They had been flying through a death zone without even knowing it. "Why aren't we dead?" she asked. "That is precisely what we need to determine," Dr. Mivsha replied. "May I run remote medical scans of your crew? They are completely non-invasive." Diana considered refusing but realized that would be stupid. If they had somehow survived something that killed everyone else, someone needed to understand why. "Go ahead, but we're watching everything you do." The scanning process took 15 minutes. Diana gathered her whole crew on the bridge so they could stay together. Lena brought tools in case they needed to defend themselves. Owen kept monitoring the council ships, noting their positions and weapon systems. Pete pulled up everything he could find in the ship's database about the council and the region of space they were in. Dr. Mivsh's voice returned, filled with what sounded like awe. "Captain Walsh, your neural architecture is unlike anything in our medical databases. You lack the quantum receptive structures that make other species vulnerable to the silence. Your brains simply do not interact with the interference field." "Is that because humans evolved separately?" Pete asked. "We were isolated from the rest of the galaxy until 50 years ago." "Possibly," Dr. Mivsha said, "though the specificity is remarkable. It is as if your species developed in a way that makes you perfectly suited to resist this particular phenomenon." Thexlan spoke again. "Captain, I must be direct with you. The Vale sector contains technology from an extinct civilization, weapons of terrible power. The Council has maintained the quarantine to ensure no one can access them. Your presence here presents a significant security concern." Diana's jaw tightened. "We didn't come here looking for weapons. We're haulers. We carry supplies, that's it." "I believe you," Thexlan said. "However, your immunity to the silence means your species is the only one capable of operating safely in this region. That makes this a diplomatic situation of the highest complexity." "You think we're going to try to claim the weapons?" Diana said flatly. "Some members of the Council fear that possibility. Others see an opportunity. If humans can survive where we cannot, perhaps we can work together to secure the dangerous technology inside." Commander Rill's scaled face appeared on screen. "The High Arbiter is being diplomatic. Some of us believe your ship should be destroyed immediately to prevent any possibility of humans looting ancient weapons." Diana stood up. "You want to kill us for surviving, for being in the wrong place. We'll leave right now. Just give us 5 hours to repair our jump drive and we'll be gone." "It's not that simple," Thexland said. "You mentioned detecting something on your sensors, a debris field deeper in the sector." Owen winced. He had mentioned that in his initial confusion. "Yes, large structures with active energy signatures. We thought they might be the source of the restriction." The council channel went silent for a long moment. When Thexland spoke again, his voice was heavy. "Captain, what you detected is likely an intact architect facility. If that is true, and if humans can access it safely, the balance of power in this galaxy could shift dramatically. The Council cannot allow you to simply fly away with that knowledge." Diana looked at her crew. Pete appeared frightened but determined. Lena had her arms crossed, ready for a fight. Owen looked guilty for having mentioned the structures at all. "What are you proposing?" Diana asked carefully. "Come to the research station. Let us conduct proper examinations. Share what you know about the structures you detected. In return, I will ensure you are treated as guests rather than prisoners, and I will personally argue for proper compensation if we ask for your assistance in exploring the sector. And if we refuse, then Commander Rill and others like him will argue that you are a security threat. I cannot guarantee your safety if that happens." Diana considered the options. They were surrounded by warships in the middle of nowhere. Her crew was tired, scared, and confused, but she was also angry at being threatened for something that was not their fault. "We'll cooperate," she said, "but I want everything in writing. We're not test subjects and we're not free labor. If you want our help, we negotiate terms." Thexland's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. "Agreed. Prepare for transport. And Captain, for what it is worth, I am sorry you are in this situation." The transmission ended. Diana sat back down and rubbed her face. "Well, this is officially the weirdest day of my life." Lena snorted. "We accidentally flew into a forbidden death zone, survived something that kills everyone else, and got threatened by space lizards. Yeah, I'd say that qualifies as weird." "What do we do?" Pete asked. Diana looked at her crew, the people who trusted her to keep them safe. "We stay together, we stay smart, and we don't let anyone push us around. We're haulers, not heroes. But if we can help solve this mess, maybe we do, on our terms." Owen pulled up the navigation data again. "Captain, I think I found what caused our miscalculation. There's a gravitational anomaly in this region that's not on any of our charts. It threw off the jump calculations." "So this really was just bad luck," Diana said. "Or something else," Pete said quietly. He was looking at the purple nebulae visible through the viewscreen. "Dr. Mivsha said our immunity seemed too specific, too perfect. What if it's not coincidence?" Diana followed his gaze to the clouds that should have killed them. "One problem at a time, Pete. First, we figure out how to survive the Council. Then we can worry about why the universe seems to want us here." The Council research station hung at the edge of the Veil sector like a mechanical moon. Diana and her crew had been aboard for 3 days, subjected to more medical tests than she thought possible. Blood samples, brain scans, genetic analysis, neural mapping. The alien doctors were thorough and polite, but Diana felt like a laboratory specimen. She sat in a waiting room that had been hastily modified for human proportions. The chairs were too small, and the air smelled faintly of chemicals she could not identify. Pete sat beside her, reading through document files on a tablet the Council had provided. Lena was packing, her energy barely contained in the small space. Owen stared out the window at the purple clouds that marked the boundary of the sector. Dr. Mivsha entered, her translucent skin showing the rapid flutter of organs beneath. She carried several data tablets and looked exhausted. "Thank you for your patience. I have the results from our analysis." And Diana asked, "Your species is neurologically unique in ways we are still cataloging. Human brains use a different method of quantum processing than other species. You lack the structures that make consciousness vulnerable to entanglement interference. In simple terms, the silence cannot find purchase in your neural tissue. Pete looked up from his reading. So it's like we're invisible to the weapon's effects. An excellent analogy. The architect weapons were designed to target specific neural architectures. Humans simply do not register as valid targets. The architects, Diana said, tell us about them. Dr. Mivsha projected a hologram into the center of the room. Images appeared showing sleek structures and elegant technology. They were a civilization that existed 50,000 years ago. They achieved technological heights we still cannot match. But they became obsessed with creating the perfect weapon, something that could disable entire populations without physical destruction. Why? Lena asked. We don't know. Ancient records suggest they feared an external threat, though we have found no evidence such a threat ever existed. They built the silence weapons, tested them in this sector, and then disappeared from history within a single generation. The hologram shifted to show recordings from previous attempts to explore the sector. Diana watched as crew members from various species collapsed within seconds of exposure. Their final moments were disturbing. They killed themselves with their own weapons. That is our theory. The silence may have been released prematurely, or perhaps intentionally. We found fragments of architect data at other sites suggesting they realized too late what they had created. The weapons were too powerful to control. Owen turned from the window. The structures we detected, are they architect facilities? Dr. Mivsha hesitated before nodding. Yes, which brings us to the next matter. The Council has been in continuous session since your arrival. There is significant debate about what should happen next. Let me guess, Diana said. Some want us locked up and some want to use us. Not precisely. Ambassador Tao Wen has been advocating for your rights as an independent species. She argues that humans should not be conscripted into Council service simply because of your immunity. However, the security concerns are significant. The weapons inside the Veil sector could destroy civilizations. Pete set down his tablet. Has anyone asked us what we want? The question seemed to surprise Dr. Mivsha. The Council tends to make decisions for the greater good. Individual preferences are typically secondary considerations. Well, that's going to be a problem, Lena said. Because we're not lab rats and we're not soldiers. We're civilians who got lost. Before Dr. Mivsha could respond, the door opened. High Arbiter Thexlan entered with Ambassador Tao Wen. The crystalline being's form glowed softly in the station's lighting. Captain Walsh, Thexlan began, the Council has reached a decision. However, before I explain it, I want to share something that changes the situation considerably. He activated a hologram showing ancient text in multiple languages. These are records recovered from an architect's site on the other side of the galaxy. They were found 20 years ago but only recently translated. The architects wrote about a species they called the Silent Ones, beings whose neural structure would be immune to consciousness-based weapons. Diana felt her stomach tighten. They knew about humans. Not exactly. They theorized such a species might exist but never found evidence. Until now, we assumed it was philosophical speculation, but the descriptions match human neurology with remarkable precision. That's impossible, Owen said. Humans evolved on Earth. We're isolated. How could ancient aliens predict our neural structure? Ambassador Tao Wen spoke, her voice like crystal chimes. There are two possibilities. Either it is an extraordinary coincidence, or the architects somehow influenced human evolution. Both explanations are troubling. Diana stood up. Are you saying we're architect creations, that humans were designed? We don't know, Thexlan admitted. Your fossil record shows natural evolution, but there are gaps in the timeline that align with the architect period. It could be coincidence. It could be intervention so subtle it left no traces, or it could be something else entirely. The room fell silent. Diana looked at her crew, seeing the same confusion and concern on their faces. The idea that humanity might not be naturally evolved was disturbing on a fundamental level. "What does this mean for us?" she asked quietly. Thexland's antenna drooped slightly. "Some in the council believe humans are architect legacy species, that you were meant to inherit their technology. This has created a philosophical and political crisis. If true, do humans have a claim to architect facilities, or does the danger of the weapons override any such claim?" "I don't want ancient weapons," Diana said firmly. "I want to take my crew home." "Unfortunately, that option is no longer available," Commander Rill said, entering behind Thexlan. His scales rippled with agitation. "You know too much. Your species is too dangerous. The Council cannot allow you to leave." Diana's hands clenched into fists. "So we're prisoners?" "No," Ambassador Talwen said sharply. "The Council has agreed to a compromise. Humans will be offered a partnership. You will help us explore and secure the Architect facility in exchange for full rights as Council members, access to our technology, and significant compensation." "And if we refuse?" Pete asked. The silence that followed was answer enough. Diana looked at each Council representative in turn. "So it's not really a choice. It's either work with you or be detained indefinitely." Thexlan clicked his mandibles in what might have been regret. "I wish I could offer better terms, but the security concerns are legitimate. If other species learn that humans can safely access architect technology, you will become targets. The partnership offers protection as well as opportunity." Lena laughed bitterly. "Some protection. We're being forced into this." "You are being asked to help solve a problem that affects the entire galaxy," Ambassador Talwen said. "The silence has killed thousands of explorers over millennia. The weapons inside could still be activated. Your immunity makes you uniquely qualified to help neutralize this threat." Diana turned to her crew. "I need to talk to my people, alone." The Council representatives left without argument. Once they were gone, Diana sat back down heavily. "Thoughts?" "We don't have much choice," Pete said. "They're right about us being targets if word gets out. And honestly, I'm curious. If there's a chance we can learn something that helps people, maybe it's worth doing." Lena crossed her arms. "I don't like being threatened, but I also don't like the idea of ancient superweapons sitting around waiting for someone worse than us to find them." Owen was still looking at the architect text in the hologram. "The math in this is beautiful and terrifying. If we can access their facility safely, we might learn things that change everything. Not just weapons. Medical technology, engineering, physics. It could help everyone." Diana thought about the choice in front of them. It was not really a choice, but the reasons for accepting were sound. "We do this on our terms. Full partnership, not servitude. Every discovery gets shared, and we get paid properly for risking our lives." "I'll negotiate the contract," Pete offered. "Then we're agreed." Diana looked at each of them. They nodded. "All right, let's go tell the Council we'll help. But someone needs to tell them that humans don't respond well to threats. Partnership means equals, not subordinates." When they called the Council representatives back, Diana stood tall. "We'll do it, but understand something. You're not recruiting soldiers or hearing contractors. You're making allies. Treat us with respect or we'll make this difficult for everyone." Thexland's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Agreed. Welcome to the Council, Captain Walsh. Let us hope your species truly was meant for this task." Diana did not mention her doubts. Whether humans were natural or designed, they were here now. And if the universe or ancient aliens or blind luck had put them in position to help, she would see it through. On humanity's terms. The retrofit took 2 weeks. Diana watched through the observation window as alien engineers swarmed over the steady Fortune, installing equipment that looked more advanced than anything humans had developed. New sensor arrays, enhanced communication systems, emergency backup generators. The Council was taking no chances with their first expedition into the Deep Vale sector. Pete had negotiated a contract that surprised even Ambassador Tal Wen. Full salvage rights to any non-weapon technology, access to Council medical databases, and payment that would make Diana and her crew wealthy by human standards. More importantly, Earth would receive observer status in Council meetings and access to peaceful technologies. "You drive a hard bargain," Thexlan had said when Pete presented the terms. "You need us more than we need you," Pete had replied simply. "We can walk away. You can't access that facility without us." Now Diana stood beside Dr. Mivsha in the observation deck, watching the final preparations. "Are you scared?" the amphibious scientist asked. "Terrified," Diana admitted. "But that's not new. Space is dangerous. This is just a different kind of danger. The silence has killed so many explorers. Knowing you are immune intellectually is different from trusting it emotionally." Diana glanced at the doctor. "Will you be coming with us?" "Yes. The Council wants full scientific analysis of everything we find. I will be aboard the Light of Understanding, following at safe distance, close enough to communicate but far enough to retreat if necessary." "You trust us to do this right?" Dr. Mivsha's large eyes blinked slowly. "I trust you to try. That is more than most species would do. You could have demanded greater payment or refused entirely. Instead, you negotiated fair terms and agreed to help. That speaks well of humanity." Lena joined them, her hands covered in lubricant from the engine checks she had been running. "The new power systems are integrated. I have to admit, Council tech is impressive. Our jump drive efficiency just increased by 40%. "The engineers were pleased with your ship's design," Dr. Mivsha said. "Simple but reliable. They said human engineering favors robustness over elegance." "That's because our ships actually have to work," Lena said with a grin. "Elegance doesn't mean much when you're stuck in deep space with a broken drive." Owen arrived carrying data tablets loaded with architect mathematics. He had been working with Council scholars to decode the ancient number systems. "I think I understand their navigation method. They used quantum probability rather than conventional astrogation. Their ships could take multiple paths simultaneously and collapse into the most efficient route." "Can we use that?" Diana asked. "Not yet, but if the facility has intact computers, maybe we can learn how. Imagine cutting travel time by half just by calculating better routes." Pete was the last to arrive, looking exhausted but satisfied. "The Council just transferred the first payment. Our accounts back on Earth just became very healthy. I also secured agreements for technology sharing. Anything we learn gets shared, but Earth gets priority access for 10 years. "How did you manage that?" Diana asked. "I pointed out that humans taking the risks should get some advantages. Thexlan agreed it was fair." Commander Rill appeared in the doorway, his scales reflecting the observation deck's lights. "Captain Walsh, the fleet is ready to depart. Are your crew prepared?" Diana looked at her people. They were scared but determined. "We're ready." The journey into the deep sector took 6 hours at sublight speeds. The Steady Fortune led the way, followed by 3 Council ships maintaining maximum safe distance. The purple nebulae grew thicker as they traveled, swirling with colors that seemed to shift when viewed directly. Diana sat in her command chair, monitoring the sensors. The quantum interference increased steadily, but she felt nothing unusual. No headaches, no disorientation, no fear. The silence was screaming at her mind and her brain simply did not notice. "It feels wrong to be this calm," Pete said from his station, "knowing what this place does to other species." "Don't overthink it," Lena called from engineering. "Our brains work different. Accept it and move on." Owen watched his navigation display with intense focus. "The debris field is ahead, 15,000 kilometers. I'm detecting over 200 distinct wreckage signatures. Diana activated the general channel. Council ships were approaching the debris field. We'll do a preliminary scan before proceeding to the central structure. Acknowledged, Thexland's voice responded. We are falling back to 20,000 kilometers. That is the furthest we can maintain reliable communication. Beyond that, you will be on your own. The wreckage field was haunting. Ship fragments from hundreds of different designs tumbled slowly through space, their hulls torn and corroded by time. Diana recognized some Council species designs, but many were completely unknown. Ancient vessels from civilizations that no longer existed. How many ships tried to reach the facility? Pete wondered aloud. Thousands, over 8 millennia, Dr. Mivsh's voice came through from the light of understanding. Every generation produced explorers who thought they could succeed where others failed. All died. Lena's voice was quiet, and we're just flying through like it's nothing. The central structure appeared gradually, resolving from the sensor static like a ghost becoming solid. It was enormous, easily 5 kilometers across. Sleek metallic surfaces unmarred by time, glowing with soft blue light. The design was elegant and alien, following geometric principles that human eyes found beautiful but strange. Owen, get us detailed scans, Diana ordered. Everything you can gather. The navigator worked quickly, his fingers dancing across controls. The structure is intact, minimal damage, power readings are stable. I'm detecting active systems throughout the interior. It's been waiting here for 50,000 years and it's still running. Approach slowly, Diana said. Let's not surprise any automated defenses. The steady Fortune moved forward carefully. Diana watched the structure grow larger on the view screen. As they drew closer, sections of the hull began to light up. Patterns flowed across the surface like waves. Is it reacting to us? Pete asked nervously. Owen checked his displays. The lighting pattern started when we reached 2 kilometers. It's scanning us. Multiple sensor types. Thermal, electromagnetic, quantum signature analysis. Should we back off? No, the scans are passive. It's identifying us, not targeting weapons. The ship continued forward. At 1 kilometer, a section of the structure opened. Massive doors retracted silently, revealing a docking bay large enough to accommodate vessels 10 times the steady Fortune's size. That's an invitation, Lena said. Question is, do we accept? Diana studied the opening. Everything about this felt planned, like the facility had been waiting for exactly this moment. Thexlan, are you seeing this? Affirmative. The facility is responding to your presence. We recommend extreme caution. Noted, we're proceeding to dock. The steady Fortune glided through the opening into a bay that was pristine despite its age. Lighting activated as they entered, illuminating smooth walls and complex machinery. Owen brought the ship down on a landing platform that seemed designed for their specific configuration. As the engines powered down, Diana felt the weight of the moment. Humans had just become the first species in 8,000 years to successfully reach an architect facility. Whatever they found inside would change everything. Suit up, she told her crew. Let's go meet history. They gathered at the airlock in full environmental suits, carrying scanning equipment and emergency supplies. The inner door opened. Beyond it, a corridor stretched into the facility, lit by soft blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Pete stepped forward first, his scanner active. Atmosphere is present. Oxygen-nitrogen mix, breathable for humans. Temperature is comfortable. No biological contaminants detected. The facility is maintaining life support after 50,000 years, Owen said in awe. The engineering required for that is beyond anything we can do. Diana led them into the corridor. Their boots made no sound on the smooth floor. As they walked, panels lit up ahead of them and dimmed behind, as if the facility was guiding them somewhere specific. This is intentional, Lena said. It's showing us where to go. They followed the lights through corridors that curved in ways that were both beautiful and disorienting. The walls displayed symbols that Owen recognized as mathematical notations. The deeper they went, the more elaborate the symbols became. Finally, they reached a chamber that was clearly designed as some kind of reception area. In the center stood a pedestal with a holographic interface. As Diana approached, it activated. Symbols flowed across the display, shifting and changing until they resolved into something that made her stop walking. Human language. English words formed in the hologram, simple and clear. Welcome, Silent Ones. We knew you would come. We could not survive our own creations, but we knew a species existed that could. This facility contains everything we were. Our knowledge, our mistakes, our final message. You are not our children. You are our judges. Decide what should be remembered and what should be forgotten. Diana read the message 3 times, her mind struggling to process the implications. Pete, Lena, and Owen stood beside her in shocked silence. They really were waiting for us, Pete finally said, but they're asking us to decide their fate. Diana looked at her crew. This is bigger than we thought. We're not just exploring a facility. We're deciding what happens to an entire civilization's legacy. The hologram waited patiently for their response, its light reflecting off their faces as humanity faced a choice that would echo across the galaxy. Diana touched the holographic interface, and it responded immediately, expanding into a 3-dimensional display that filled the chamber. Information flowed past in streams of data, images, and mathematical formulas. The architect facility was offering them everything. Owen, can you make sense of this? Diana asked. The navigator stepped forward, his eyes wide as he studied the symbols. His hands moved through the holographic controls, sorting and categorizing. It's organizing itself based on what we want to know. The interface is reading our intent somehow. Look, when I think about navigation, it shows me their propulsion technology. When I wonder about power systems, it displays their energy generation. Pete activated his scanner and pointed it at the hologram. This is quantum entangled processing. The computer is reading minute changes in our neural activity and responding. It's basically reading our minds at a surface level. That's disturbing, Lena said, but also incredibly useful. Let me try something. She focused on the facility's engineering, and the display shifted to show detailed schematics of the structure's systems. This is amazing. I can see how everything works just by wanting to understand it. Diana established communication with the Council ships. Thexlan, we've accessed the central computer. The architects left their entire knowledge base for us. It's designed to be intuitive, responsive to human neural patterns. There was a long pause before Thexlan responded. His voice carried a mixture of awe and concern. Can you determine what else is in the facility? Specifically, are there weapons? Diana thought about weapons, and the hologram responded. A new section appeared, marked with warning symbols even she could understand. Yes, there's a whole section dedicated to what they called consciousness weapons, multiple designs. Some can affect single individuals, others could target entire populations across planetary distances. This is what we feared, Commander Rill's voice cut in. Captain, you must not access those systems. The danger is immeasurable. I wasn't planning to, Diana said, but I need to understand what we're dealing with here. Give me a moment. She focused on the weapon specifications, and the hologram provided a detailed overview. The technology was elegant and horrifying. The architects had developed ways to target the quantum properties of consciousness itself, disrupting neural function at the fundamental level. The weapons could be calibrated for instant death, permanent unconsciousness, or graduated effects that left victims alive but mentally impaired. What made it worse was the delivery system. The weapons did not require physical projectiles or energy beams. Once activated, they propagated through quantum entanglement, affecting targets across vast distances simultaneously. A single facility could potentially neutralize all sentient life in multiple star systems. "Pete, are you seeing this?" Diana asked. Her first officer was pale. "Yes, this is worse than anything humans ever developed. Our nuclear weapons destroy bodies, these destroy minds, and they're permanent. Once activated in a region, the quantum interference persists indefinitely." That's what the Veil sector is, Owen realized. The silence isn't residual energy from weapons testing. It's an active weapon that's been running for 50,000 years. Diana felt sick. They turned this whole region into a weapon and couldn't turn it off. The hologram responded to her question, displaying architect historical records. Images showed a civilization in crisis. The weapons had been developed for defense, but testing had revealed an unforeseen problem. Once activated, the quantum entanglement was self-sustaining. The weapons could not be deactivated without collapsing the quantum fields of nearby space, which would destroy entire solar systems. The architects had realized too late that their perfect weapon was also a perfect trap. They could not use it without condemning themselves and their neighbors. They could not destroy it without causing worse damage. So they had quarantined the testing grounds and hoped time would eventually dissipate the effects. It had not. 50,000 years later, the silence remained as deadly as the day it was created. "Why did they disappear?" Lena asked. The hologram showed more records. The architect's civilization had been torn apart by the realization of what they had created. Some wanted to destroy everything and start over. Others argued for preservation and learning from the mistakes. The debate had escalated into conflict, and their society had collapsed into civil war. The final records showed scattered remnant populations abandoning their technology entirely, choosing to regress to primitive states rather than risk creating more horrors. "They destroyed themselves," Pete said quietly, "not with the weapons but with the guilt of having created them." Diana thought about humanity's own history of dangerous weapons: nuclear bombs, biological agents, chemical warfare. Every civilization that reached a certain technological level seemed destined to create tools of mass destruction. The question was what they did afterward. "The architects left this facility as a message," she said. "They're asking us to decide whether their knowledge should be preserved or destroyed. They want us to judge them." "We're not qualified to make that decision," Owen protested. "This affects the entire galaxy." "That's exactly why we have to make it," Diana countered. "We're the only species that can survive here. If we don't decide, someone else will try eventually. Someone who might not have our reservations about using the weapons." She activated the channel to the Council ships. "Thexlan, I need you to convene an emergency session. Full Council, every species. We have information they need to hear." Over the next 6 hours, Diana and her crew cataloged everything they could access. The facility contained more than weapons. There were medical advances that could cure diseases affecting billions, engineering techniques that could revolutionize construction, energy systems that were clean and nearly infinite, agricultural methods that could end hunger. The architects had been incredibly advanced in every field. But all of it was shadowed by the weapons. The knowledge could not be separated. To gain the medical advances meant also gaining the capability to build consciousness weapons. To learn their engineering meant understanding how to make self-sustaining quantum weapons. Everything was interconnected. "It's a package deal," Lena observed. "You can't cherry-pick the good stuff and ignore the bad. The same principles that make their medical technology work also make their weapons possible." Diana knew she was right. This was not a simple choice between good and evil. It was a choice about whether to accept knowledge that contained both incredible benefits and terrible dangers. The Council convened via long-range communication. Representatives from 200 species gathered in virtual space, their various forms represented by holographic avatars. Diana stood before them, feeling the weight of their attention. "We have explored the architect facility," she began. "What we found changes everything. They left their complete knowledge base, designed to be accessed by species immune to consciousness weapons, by humans." She shared the data her crew had gathered, holding nothing back. The medical advances, the engineering, the energy systems. And then the weapons. The terrible, permanent, consciousness-destroying weapons that had killed their creators. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some species argued for immediate destruction of the facility. Others wanted to preserve it under heavy guard. A few suggested taking the peaceful technology while destroying the weapons, though Diana explained that was impossible. Ambassador Tao Wen's crystalline form glowed brightly. "This is not a decision for the Council alone. Humans discovered this facility. Humans can access it safely. Humans should have significant voice in what happens next." "They're barely spacefaring," Commander Rill objected. "They lack the wisdom to make such choices." Diana bristled. "Our species has dealt with weapons of mass destruction for over 80 years. We developed nuclear bombs, realized how dangerous they were, and chose not to use them in our conflicts. We're not perfect, but we understand the responsibility that comes with dangerous knowledge." Thexlen's voice carried authority. "Captain Walsh makes a valid point. Humanity has experience with this dilemma. Perhaps that qualifies them better than species who have never faced such choices." The debate continued for hours. Diana listened to dozens of perspectives, each species bringing their own history and philosophy to the question. It was exhausting but enlightening. She was seeing galactic politics in action, the careful balance of different cultures trying to find common ground. Finally, Ambassador Tao Wen proposed a compromise. The facility becomes a joint research station. Humans administer it because of their immunity. The Council oversees security and approves all research projects. Any species can apply to participate, but humans have veto power over dangerous research. Knowledge is shared freely, but weapon technology remains classified at the highest level. "And if humans abuse this trust," Commander Rill demanded. "Then the Council has every right to sanction Earth," Diana said. "But give us the chance to prove ourselves first. We didn't ask for this responsibility, but we'll accept it, on one condition." "Which is?" Thexlen asked. "Regular inspections, complete transparency. We'll share everything we learn. In return, the Council supports Earth's development and includes humans as full members. No more treating us like primitive newcomers." The vote took 20 minutes. When it finished, the compromise had passed with a solid majority. Humanity would become the guardians of architect knowledge, overseers of both its benefits and its dangers. As the council session ended, Diana sat down heavily. Pete, Lena, and Owen gathered around her. "We just changed the future of our entire species," Pete said. "For better or worse," Lena added. Diana looked at the holographic display still showing architect knowledge. "We'll make it better. We have to. They trusted us with this. Every species that died trying to reach this place trusted that someone would eventually succeed. We can't let them down." Owen smiled slightly. "No pressure though, right?" Despite everything, Diana laughed. They were just cargo haulers who had made a navigation error. Now they were making decisions that would echo across the galaxy for generations. It was absurd and terrifying and somehow felt right. "Let's get back to work," she said. "We have a lot to learn." 4 months had transformed the architect facility from a silent monument into a bustling research station. Diana walked through corridors that now carried the sounds of a dozen species working together. Chivari technicians calibrated sensor arrays alongside human engineers. Aquar biologists studied medical databases with help from human doctors. Lithite mathematicians collaborated with human physicists on quantum theories that neither species fully understood alone. The steady fortune sat in the main docking bay, upgraded beyond recognition. Architect technology had been carefully integrated with human systems, creating a hybrid vessel that was faster and more capable than anything Earth had produced. Diana could have sold the ship for enough money to buy a small moon, but she had no intention of giving it up. It was home. "Captain Walsh, we have the analysis you requested," Dr. Mivsha said, approaching with a data tablet. The amphibious scientist had become a permanent resident of the station, coordinating the biological research teams. Diana accepted the tablet and read through the summary. "So the silence can be neutralized." "In theory, yes. The weapon's quantum entanglement is self-sustaining, but we have identified a way to collapse the field safely. It would take approximately 5 years and require coordinated effort across the entire Vale sector, but the region could be reclaimed." "That's incredible. Think of how much space would be opened up for colonization." "Indeed. The Council is already drafting proposals for the project. Your people will need to be heavily involved, given your immunity to the effects." Diana smiled. "Humans helping clean up someone else's mess, that's become our specialty lately." She continued her daily rounds, checking on various research projects. In one laboratory, Lena was working with a team of Council engineers to adapt architect power generation for conventional ships. The technology was complex, but Lena had a gift for understanding alien engineering. "How's the project?" Diana asked. Lena looked up, her face smudged with lubricant and her eyes bright with excitement. "We're close to a breakthrough. The architect systems are incredibly efficient, but they require materials we don't have. I think I've found substitutes that will work almost as well. If we're right, we can increase standard ship efficiency by 200%. That would change everything. Travel times cut by more than half." "Exactly. And the best part is there's no military application. It's pure transportation technology. Even Commander Rill couldn't object to sharing this." The reptilian officer had become less hostile over the months. He still did not fully trust humans, but he respected their willingness to share discoveries rather than hoard them. Diana had made a point of inviting him to weekly briefings, ensuring he was informed about every aspect of the research. In another section, Owen worked with a team of translators and mathematicians. They were decoding architect cultural records, trying to understand the civilization beyond just their technology. The results were fascinating and tragic. "They were artists," Owen explained when Diana stopped by. "Not just scientists and engineers. They created music, literature, visual art. They had philosophy and ethics. They weren't monsters. They were people who made a terrible mistake." "Have you found anything about why they predicted humanity?" Owen pulled up a file. "Sort of. The architects believed consciousness existed on a quantum level and that evolution across the universe followed certain patterns. They theorized that eventually, a species would evolve with neural structures optimized for survival rather than quantum efficiency. Humans fit that prediction. Our brains are less elegant than most species, but they're more robust. So we're the cosmic equivalent of a reliable old truck." "In a way, yes. Other species have sophisticated neural networks that can do amazing things. Human brains are simpler but harder to break. That made us immune to weapons designed to exploit neural sophistication." Diana considered that. It was humbling and somehow fitting. Humanity was not special because they were better. They were special because they were tougher, more stubborn, and had evolved in isolation to be self-reliant. Pete found her in the commissary, where human and alien researchers gathered for meals. The facility's food synthesizers had been programmed with recipes from 200 worlds, creating a bizarre fusion cuisine that was surprisingly popular. "The first batch of Council scientists just arrived," Pete said, sitting down with a tray of something that looked like pasta but was actually synthesized protein from aquar agricultural methods. 50 new researchers, mostly focused on medical applications. "How's the integration going?" Smoothly. Everyone's excited to be here. Dr. Mivsha has done an excellent job managing expectations and keeping communication clear. We've had zero conflicts in the past month. Diana took a bite of her meal, something inspired by human curry but adapted with Chivari spices. I keep waiting for something to go wrong. This is working too well. Maybe that's just what cooperation looks like when everyone benefits. We're not competing for resources or territory. We're sharing knowledge. The incentives are aligned. I hope you're right, but we need to stay vigilant. Someone will eventually want to weaponize what we're learning here. That's why we have the oversight protocols. Any project that could have military applications requires unanimous approval from the Security Council, and humans have veto power. Diana nodded, but she could not shake a feeling of unease. The weapons section of the facility remained locked and heavily monitored. Only Diana and 3 other humans had access codes, along with High Arbiter Thexlen and 2 Council security officers. They had all agreed the weapons technology would remain sealed unless the galaxy faced an existential threat. But knowledge had a way of spreading. Eventually, someone would figure out how consciousness weapons worked, whether from architect data or independent research. The question was whether the galaxy would be wise enough to reject such weapons when they did. Later that evening, Diana stood in the observation deck that had become her favorite spot on the station. The purple nebulae of the Veil sector stretched endlessly before her, beautiful and deadly. In a few years, if the neutralization project succeeded, these clouds would dissipate. The region would become safe for all species. Thexlan joined her, his mandibles clicking softly. "You look contemplative, Captain." "Just thinking about how much has changed. 4 months ago, I was hauling cargo and complaining about bureaucracy. Now I'm responsible for managing the most important research facility in the galaxy." "You have handled it with grace. The Council was right to trust humanity with this role. I hope we keep earning that trust. Sometimes I worry we're moving too fast, learning too much without thinking about consequences." Thexlan's antenna shifted in what Diana had learned was his expression of understanding. That is wisdom speaking. The architects moved fast as well. They created wonders and horrors with equal enthusiasm. Your caution is precisely why this arrangement works. What happens when someone wants to use the weapons? You know it will happen eventually. Some crisis will emerge, and someone will argue the weapons are necessary. Then we refuse, together. That is the strength of this partnership. No single species can make that decision. It requires consensus, which means it requires wisdom to prevail over fear. Diana hoped he was right. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of potential and possibility. The architects had shown what could go wrong. Maybe humanity and the Council could show what could go right. A notification appeared on her communication device. It was a message from Earth. The first human colony ship was preparing to launch, carrying 10,000 people to establish humanity's second world. They would use architect navigation technology, travel faster than any human vessel before, and settle a planet that Council surveyors had identified as ideal for human life. Humanity was expanding into the galaxy, no longer isolated or ignored. They were becoming full members of galactic civilization, partners in exploration and discovery. It was everything Diana had hoped for when she first left Earth to haul cargo across the stars. Pete, Lena, and Owen joined her in the observation deck. They stood together, looking out at the nebulae that had almost killed them, and instead had given them a purpose beyond anything they had imagined. "Think we'll ever go back to normal cargo runs?" Lena asked. "This is normal now," Pete said. "We're research station administrators, technology consultants, and diplomatic liaisons. Our old jobs seem boring in comparison." "I miss boring," Owen admitted, "but I wouldn't trade this for anything. We're helping shape the future." Diana put her hand on the observation window, feeling the slight vibration of the station's systems. Somewhere in the facility, researchers from a dozen species were unlocking secrets that could cure diseases, end hunger, and revolutionize transportation. The weapons remained sealed, dangerous knowledge contained by collective wisdom. The architects asked us to judge them, she said quietly, to decide if they should be remembered or forgotten. I think we've made our choice. We remember their achievements and their mistakes. We learn from both. We take what's good and refuse what's dangerous. That's all anyone can do. Thexlan clicked his mandibles in agreement. That is the human approach, pragmatic wisdom. It is why the galaxy needed you. Diana smiled. We're not saviors or heroes. We're just people who got lost and found something important. Now we're doing our best to handle it responsibly. That may be the most heroic thing of all, Thexlan said, accepting responsibility when it would be easier to walk away. As they stood together, human and alien, the station hummed with the work of hundreds of researchers. The Veil sector's clouds glowed in the darkness beyond, a reminder of both danger and possibility. Humanity had inherited the legacy of an ancient civilization, not through conquest or theft, but through a navigation error and the courage to face what they found. The galaxy was changing. Humans were part of that change now, partners in building a future where knowledge was shared, dangers were faced together, and ancient mistakes were not repeated. It was not perfect, but it was better than what came before. Diana looked at her crew, the people who had trusted her through everything. Ready to get back to work, we have a galaxy to help fix. They nodded, and together they walked back into the facility, ready to face whatever came next. The Steady Fortune sat waiting in the docking bay, no longer just a cargo hauler but a symbol of humanity's journey from isolation to partnership. The stars waited beyond, full of mysteries yet to be discovered and challenges yet to be faced. Humanity was ready, and this time they would not face them alone.